Good afternoon, everybody. This is Lauren Morgan. I am with the Tampa Sales and Marketing Council, and I am the staff liaison. Just want to give you a warm welcome and thank you for being here. A few housekeeping things before we get started. Just want to give thanks to our 2020 annual sponsors. It's been a wild year and they have been so good to us. We've actually produced more programs this year than ever before, being able to go virtual and having amazing keynote speakers and coaches from around the country like Roland Nairnsey really gifting us their time and being there on the front lines to help you guys. It's just been an amazing year to be able to produce more programs under the current circumstances. So thank you to our sponsors who made that possible this year and continue to stand by our side here at the Tampa Bay Builders Association. Brian Schwartzwelder is on our call today. He is our current Sales and Marketing Council President, serves on the Florida Home Builders Association as well as the National Association of Home Builders as a associate director, and is involved in, gosh, I don't even know how many committees and councils. So thank you for your leadership. He is on site right now. Brian, you want to tell us where you are?
Yeah. Can you guys see me, or are we just talking about it?
No, we're seeing you too.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I'm on site right now at the Southeast Builders Conference, New Southern Home by Allaire Homes. It's kind of the showcase home for the Southeast Builders Conference. And unfortunately, with everything being virtual this year, not as many people are allowed to tour it as normal. Usually everybody gets to go through here during the Southeast Builders Conference. But Gray Street Studios is on site today and capturing it with photography, virtual tours and stuff. So in the coming days, look for all that content online and we'll be able to showcase this home so everybody can tour it virtually, just like we're living most of our lives right now. And also just want to let you guys know that tomorrow is a Tampa Bay Sales and Marketing Council Board of Directors meeting. If anybody would like to participate in that and hop on the call and help us out with all the great events we have coming on this year, that would be awesome. And without further ado, our good buddy Roland with New Home Sales Plus is going to teach us the new world order about appointment setting, strategies, and protocols. So welcome, Roland. Thank you again for joining us at Tampa.
Hi, Brian. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, you're a little muffled, but other than that, it's
there we go. Yeah, I think I might take it off. So this is the part of the topic is about wearing masks, and I'm not sure if it's a great idea on a webinar, but hopefully you can see it there. It says love. So I'll take that one off and take this one off, and we'll get started here and get into the program. So
yeah, comfort your own home.
Hold on a second, everybody. That wasn't as easy as planned. So good. All right, that's what I get for trying something different. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Tampa Bay Builders Association especially, and Lauren worked so hard behind the scenes there to organize it, and you, Brian, as well. Thank you so much. So I can't wait to get started. So hopefully we're all good here. Lauren, a thumbs up. Everybody can hear me okay and see what we're looking at?
Yeah, everything's great. And just a reminder for all the participants on the call, we have a chat feature if you guys want to just chat amongst yourselves. And we have a Q&A feature at the bottom too. If you have questions along the way, I'll keep an eye on that.
Please,
and we'll kindly and politely interrupt Roland to take those questions. But we want to make this as interactive as possible.
Yes.
And we're all learning and trying to connect during these times. And this is what it's all about. So let's collaborate and let's hear what you have to say, Roland.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So I have to give Lauren credit as well, because it was really Lauren's idea. She said the feedback from the teams in Tampa was how do we connect with the mask and so forth, and I completely get that. So we're gonna spend the first part of the program talking about that. Please, if you have a question, then just pop it over to Lauren and she can jump in, and I'll be happy to ask it. And then we're going to focus on a topic that maybe isn't the most scintillating in the world, at least least when you first think about it, the idea of appointment setting, and again, and in order to increase conversion ratios and sales. So when I suggested that to Lauren, she's like, do you think that that's what we really need? But the idea is that, look, in Tampa, which is where we're coming to specifically, I know that sales have been pretty good. So if we're getting those first visit sales, that's wonderful. But the other part of the program is to be proactive and make sure that we bring people back with a real plan. And so it's sort of a little bit more of what I would typically teach when I go to go out on the road. But I thought I would put it into this webinar today as a very important topic. To hopefully you can get some tips and things that you can do that will increase your sales, increase your conversion ratio. Was great at that. But let's start with the idea of the mask and how to communicate and connect. Full disclosure, I've made my living by only teaching stuff that I've done myself as far as a sales trainer. So as most of you know, I've spent my whole career either selling homes or managing new home communities. And now I've been a trainer for quite a while. And so I haven't sold with masks, of course. I go out every day and communicate with people with them and find it as troubling as the rest of us. So what I did really was I reached out to people, some managers and salespeople in the Tampa market, as well as all my salespeople that I work with all across the country, to really sort of find out what they were experiencing. So this is sort of is the best of that, if that makes sense. The other thing is that I'm looking at a workbook on the screen. Normally I would do a PowerPoint, but some of you have downloaded this workbook, and I realized that I sent you a workbook with a lot of blanks in it. And because this is a webinar, it's probably a little difficult for you to practically fill in the blanks. So I have the answers to all the blanks for you in the workbook. And if you'd like me to email this to you, please just email Roland at New Home Sales Plus, and I can send it to you. Plus, I'll give a copy to Lauren since she sent it out. And I just realized that there were just too many blanks to fill in. It wouldn't be enjoyable to have to sort of scratch that stuff in. And what did he say? And look, I speak so quickly and get so excited that I want to make sure that you get as much as possible. All right, so there's that. We've got the workbook, and let's get started. So the first idea, of course, is that we're hearing from all of you, everybody across the country, that it's really hard to communicate with clients through the mask and of course, and connect with them, which is the ultimate goal. I don't know about you, but when I wear a mask, the top part of my face doesn't look as friendly as I'd like it to. I wish, they say smile with your eyes, and I try, but I've caught glimpses of myself, and it's not ideal. So we all understand that in this together. So the first thing to understand is this, though, that words are only 7% of communication, and body language and voice make up the other 93%. So the idea of that is that whilst words are very, very important. Now that comes from two studies, by the way. There was a Dr. Morabian in the 1950s, and then the University of Pennsylvania in the 1980s. They both agreed that words are only 7%. And the other components make up different factors. So the point of that is that at least we can compensate for our mouths being covered by really good body language, is what I want to say. So there's a disclaimer, I'm not a doctor or scientist, don't pretend to purport to be one, but like all of you, I think I have a pretty highly developed EQ, and we can empathize with people. So what I'm learning from everybody is just that we're in this together, obviously, and you want to communicate that. I have a group of the builders that I work with on a full-time basis, and we meet every quarter by Zoom and discuss topics. So last week we met, and what the consensus is that if you're clear on the outside about what your rules are with masks, then people are much more friendly when they come inside. So if on your website it says, in order to come in, you need to wear a mask. On the door, of course, to your sales office, it should say that. And any of the COVID rules that you're following, what the builders shared with me is that when they do that, there's an increase in traffic because the clients recognize that you're being safe and that you're taking precautions. And also, as it relates to this topic of wearing a mask and communicating, they're already expecting it. So it's not going to be a surprise. If there's inconsistency in that messaging, or you sort of do, sort of don't, then that's, I think, where some of the problems lie. But when people understand these are the rules, there's even a builder we work with that has a QR code on the outside door, and so the people scan it with their phones. They download some questions that they have to answer, like, have you been out of the country the last 2 weeks, et cetera, et cetera. If that all looks good, then the salesperson gets their contact information on the inside, which we think is amazing. It's just a clever way to have someone sort of pre-register and get their info. They come inside knowing now that they have an appointment that day and that you're going to be taking precautions. So I think part of it is to set the expectation that this is just what we have to do. It's not, we're nobody's choice. We're in it together. We're taking the precautions that we need to. So that's the first thing, is to empathize, let them know we're in together and that you care. I like to make jokes, but this is not a funny situation. I don't mean that, but being lighthearted with clients is so important. So one of the salespeople I spoke to, Mike in Orlando, who I worked with years ago, is a terrific salesperson. And he tells people, look, underneath this mask, I'm smiling, I promise, which I thought was cute to let people know that. So anything that you can do to let them know that you're aligned with them, you're in it with them, you're obviously being safe for their benefit as well as your own, but you are being cheerful, you are being positive, and that kind of stuff. The most important part, I believe, after that would be the following, because of the importance of body language and voice, but specifically body language, is to really pay attention to how you mirror and match. And so as a trainer, I've taught that before. In fact, I was in Tampa when we did that program on body language and mirroring and matching. So what I want you to do is mirror and match their level of concern. So there are certain people that we'll meet, correct, that are really concerned about COVID and what it means to them. So we have to match their level of empathy, their level of concern, and be highly empathetic. There are people, you probably agree, that are more cavalier, and while they want to follow the rules and abide by what the rules are to do the right thing, they're just not as concerned as the others. So for those people, again, I'm not saying take off the mask or break any rules, but you would mirror and match their level of concern with COVID and how you react. So I think just being really empathetic about how they are. Some of you probably are meeting people that call first and to make their appointment. So with them, you're going to learn how worried they are about the situation and share with them what precautions you're taking and that kind of stuff. So let's get back to you. You've got your mask on, and I actually just dropped mine. So let me pick it back up again. And like you, I probably have lots of different ones. This one has a nice message on it. It says love. I don't know if that makes people feel more loving or not. But it's like when you say relax, it doesn't always work. People don't really relax when you say that. But the idea is to have something nice and friendly on there. But anyway, when we have that on there, we want to make them comfortable. So we might have to repeat things knowing that they can't hear us. So as it pertains to voice, we're going to slow down. We're going to speak slowly. Our body language, we're going to match. We're going to match what they're doing. Certainly, trying to be lighthearted, smiling with your eyes is important. Increased hand gestures makes a lot of sense to make sure they totally get things. So over here we have this, and what do you think of that? But they are going to watch that a lot more than they have in the past. And then in your workbook, I've got this. If you have the workbook, highlight this, please. Repeat important concepts and involve more. So as a trainer, all those that know me know that I'm a big exponent, of involvement throughout. And so right now, we should amplify that to make sure they actually got what you said. So when you're saying things like, we include, I don't know, luxury plank throughout the great room, how does that sound? What do you think? Does that something to connect with them, to check in with them, to make sure they actually heard you? Because I think that all of us could get into this modality of just saying yes and not really be listening to each other. So I want you to amplify your involvement. Last time I talked about close as you go during our virtual seminar. Even more of that. How does a great room feel? What do you think of the main level? What about the backyard? Isn't it a pretty view? Just to slow down and check in on a much more frequent basis, because there is that possibility that you are not connecting based upon the barrier of the fabric right here that we have between covering our mouths and those kinds of things. And then if you have a concern, they didn't hear you, please be prepared to repeat it to make sure they really understood it. So those are those ideas is just to really, I think, be a lot more thorough, a lot more sort of pedantic with your presentation and your demonstration, check in a lot more, make sure that the important concepts are really being gleaned by them and that kind of stuff. I talked already about matching their level of concern, so we want to be empathetic and make sure they really understand that. Let's not give any people lectures or those kinds of things, but let's make sure that they know that we're being safe. The last idea, and this came to me again from at least three different salespeople I work with are doing this, which is instead of the mask, they're wearing this, they're wearing the face shields. I have a huge disclaimer. I don't know if that can replace a mask legally, with the rules that are in place. I actually emailed NHB to find out if they have any rules on that. But the face shields are available on Amazon. I've got 3 for $8.95, so they're a good deal. You can get them pretty easily, and it's not taking away the PPE from other people or anything like that anymore. It's considered normal. But I just want to make sure that your companies would be okay with it and that kind of stuff. But the 3 salespeople I spoke to said that they really enjoy this because, of course, you're fully connected. They can see your expressions and all those kinds of things. So that was a practical tip that I got from the field that I wanted to share with you. But again, please check with your company to make sure it follows guidelines. Hey, Lauren, is anybody asking any questions on the idea of face masks before we leave this topic?
No, not yet. Nope. No questions. Thanks.
Okay, good. And if you do have tips on what you're doing, please share with them at the question and share with Lauren. At the end of this, we'll bring them up and we'll share it with the group because we all want to learn from each other. You've got a lot more practical experience out there in the field dealing with this. All right, let's get into the appointment setting idea. And we're going to go to the workbook. For those that have it, we are on page 5. I'm going to deal with a couple of concepts. Mainly it's return guests and the importance of bringing people back with a planned encounter. We can touch on the idea of online sales counselor appointments, but not everybody that we're working with on this webinar has online sales counselors. So I want to make it, well, the sweet spot's going to be talking about bringing people back and return guests. First of all, it's not in the workbook, but let's talk about the whole philosophy behind this. We all know that if we don't sell somebody on the first visit, sell them a home, which is totally okay, even though some of us are in markets like Tampa that are pretty overheated. There's an undersupply of homes, so it makes it very attractive for people to buy quickly. But let's be realistic. Not everyone's going to make that commitment on the first visit. So let's have a plan to bring people back. Research shows that if you don't have a planned encounter, an appointment with somebody to come back, then your chance of making the sale has decreased by over 70%, which is pretty high. If you have an appointment, something in writing with them, then the chance of making the sale is it's between 25 to 35%. So 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 chance that you'll make a sale when they come back in. So how do you feel when you see somebody pull in for their appointment? Do you feel excited? Show of hands. Yes. Hopefully you didn't raise your hand as you're driving or something. Anyway, but I know from personal experience that when you make an appointment and you see your clients pull into the driveway in front of your model, like, yes, this is going to be great. I'm going to make a sale here. You'll feel very good about it. So let's have that second date strategy, as it were, to not put all of our eggs in the closing basket for the first visit. If that clearly isn't going to happen, let's plan on how we bring them back. So that's the purpose of today, is to make sure that we come up with a good strategy in what we do. And there's some stuff that you probably are doing already, but hopefully as we get deep into this, there's going to be some ideas. You're like, wow, I never thought of trying that. And it's stuff that I've done that works, and others that I work with are working all across the country. So really quickly, if you've established early on that they're not going to buy, then the first thing you want to do is start leaving things out of your presentation. Correct? So that they have a reason to come back. If you cram things in there, then maybe there's no reason to come back. So the next part of it is, if you give them too much information, what's going to happen to the likelihood of them coming back? They're unlikely to come back. So as you establish that idea that they're not going to make a decision, so let's say that they just come out with it, that it's, I don't know, it's 4:45 and they say we have to leave here in 15 minutes. Well, I think you'd be foolish to push too hard and close aggressively. They're probably not going to want to work with you. So then let's leave things out proactively and make sure that there's stuff for them to cover when they come back. So in a few minutes, we'll talk about what that stuff could be, and you can pick from the list or share ideas of what you do. Let's say they say, look, Roland, that's great. You know, we have to leave, but go ahead and email me stuff. So email me prices of things, for example. What's wrong with that? Well, we don't want to do that because there's no emotion to that email. So let's say that you want to price out lots of luxury finishes, luxury choices that you give. When you email that to them, where are they? They're at home. Maybe they got the news on, and look, nobody's really cheerful right now. It's lots and lots of crazy news and weather and whatever. I'm not going to get it. We all know what's going on. So that's not a good thing to send people that information. We need to have a better strategy. So let's not email them prices or that kind of stuff, because it's not emotional. And we'll say it many times that buying is emotion backed by logic. So the next question is, where's the most emotional place to bring your client back to? right? I heard you screaming it out from the hinterlands of Tampa there. Either a model home or a move-in ready home if that's what they're interested in and it looks in good enough condition. Or if you don't have that and maybe you're an on-your-lot builder, then maybe it's your design studio. But bringing them back to you is the strategy, right? We agree. And then when they come back, I want to look at what we do with them to make sure that you convert as many of these appointments as you possibly can. All right, there's a script in here that if they ask you to email prices, the kind of thing that you could say. Any of the scripts that I have in these kinds of workbooks, they're not meant to be taken word for word. You can, and they work, just so you know, but there's no pressure to learn it word for word is what I'm saying. It's the concept behind it that really is important. I was working with a salesperson in Charlotte one time, Charlotte, North Carolina, and she had a client that she'd been working with for over 3 months. Her name is Kendall, and she this was many years ago, and she was gonna. He wanted her to email prices. She was gonna do it. I said, "No, Kendall, write this down." She did. She said it. He came in the next day and brought the home. She finally got off of his treadmill, and it was words to the effect of, "I'd love to share that with you, but it may be confusing or too complicated. So in order to prevent misunderstanding, I'd love to share it in person, and then you make an appointment. Is this time or this time better for you?" So don't get on their treadmill. Don't let them. What they're doing, if you keep emailing prices to people, you're actually extending the distance between you and the sale. Does that make sense? In other words, if you keep sending them stuff, they're not likely to come back. If you say, "I'd love to, but it's confusing," then you need to bring them back. The only exception would be if you have out-of-town buyers, in which case I would do this virtually and still wouldn't email them stuff. The part of the program that I don't think everybody does, based upon my experience as a coach, is to really visualize your appointment. And so here's a picture of Michael Jordan. Have any of you watched the documentary on ESPN? It's pretty good stuff. So one of the things I remember most about Michael Jordan was that as great as he was, before every game, you'd see him closing his eyes. Sometimes you'd have the ball in his hand, the basketball, and he would be visualizing that game. Well, look, he was one of the greatest players of all time, but he hadn't played against those specific opponents for a while, whether it was Larry Bird or I'm trying to come up with names. I'm not great at these connotations. But anyway, he was visualizing that game. So it's apparently called neuroplasticity when you allow your brain to go into these places even without you physically being there. And so I have always done that with every appointment I've ever had. I would visualize the outcome of it. And that's what I want us to think about. Are we really visualizing and being as prepared as we can? So the goal is to begin, as Dr. Covey says, begin with the end in mind. So when you're visualizing, what I used to do, what I recommend, is that you, in your mind, you're visualizing sitting around a desk, writing your agreement, your sales agreement, and then work your way backwards from there, thinking, how do I, when the clients come back, what do I need to do to help them to get to that point where we're sitting around that table and we're actually writing an agreement? So here we go. So here's some things that we can do. We want to be intentional. As I said, we don't want to send stuff to people. We want to bring them back. But when we're visualizing, let's figure out where we want to meet them. So is it going to be at the model home or the available home? I would suggest it's not the ready home, unless you've previewed it and you know that it's perfect that day. But that's totally up to you, obviously. I can't micromanage that. But if the available home has risk in it, in terms of it not being ready, anybody ever had that happen where you've had an appointment and you've shown a home under construction and you either couldn't get in or there was some surprises in it, let's say. Construction left you a little treat over there that wasn't necessary. I've had all those terrible things happen, as I'm sure you have. So I learned preview things and typically meet somewhere else at my sales office or the model first so I could plan the encounter and make sure that it was always positive. Or at the design studio, there may be some instances where you've done a price out for them and it makes more sense just to meet there and you can walk them through those finishes and then go to a home if you'd like. The other part of your visualization, of course, has to be either the home site, or if it's an available home, you'd be looking at the land where it goes, because in order to make a sale, your clients have to have experienced that, and then visualize ending at your desk. Make sense? Whenever, you've heard me say it, we want to never negotiate on your feet, always close at your seat. So clearly when you're writing the sale, you're sitting down at your desk. So I would leave all your information back at the desk, or the important information, for you to have to go back there and recap. So there we go. So what the props that we need to visualize, of course, your home plan, that's obvious, I think. There's a note in here that you can personalize things. with the company I worked for 3.5 years in Southwest Florida. When we had an appointment to sort of go through a plan that we had updated for people and personalized it, we would write their names on the plan and we'd write kids' names on there. So when we did the big reveal of here's your plan with some structural changes or whatever it would be, it was already personalized. So that makes it even more irresistible for clients, as much as I think, well, maybe I shouldn't go ahead, but there's their personalized plan with their own family names on it. And then of course that price out, and then the prices, and then structural choices as well, if you offer that. And then last but not least, and this doesn't get a whole bunch of love whenever I explain this, but again, only teach stuff that I did. If it's helpful to get a picture of the home on the home site, either a plat that somebody could do for you. Some people use Google Earth and get that ready where you're actually showing an imprint of the home on the home site. And if nothing else, let's say that this isn't really that important to the client to make them move forward, it just shows that you took the time to prepare for them and that you care about their needs. So there's an added benefit that having all this information ready is going to prove to them that you really are a professional. And this is what it's going to be like when you work with them and build a home. Like, wow, you really are a prepared person, and this is what we're looking for in the process. So those are some ideas. That stuff I think you had for the most part. But most of the people I work with, sales would know that. This is the stuff that I find more exciting, which is the emotional stuff. When you go to your quiet place and you start visualizing the appointment, think about this stuff as well, because this is what's going to connect you and what's going to bind you to them, or they're going to be bound to you. So first of all, their personality style. What were the hot buttons? What did they react to when you were demonstrating the home? What did they get really excited about? And then any possible objections that they could bring up. So when you have that, this is what we do. First of all, we adjust our personality, correct? And then we can have specific props ready for them. So in the market I worked in just south of you guys in Tampa, I worked in Sarasota and Naples, and oftentimes we found that the wives would come in during the week with the realtors perhaps, and they would do the previewing, and if they liked us, then they would bring their husbands back for an appointment. And sometimes we got quite far into it, to the plan and the home site they liked. So what I learned is that these husbands were often, the wives were often high I's or S's, so tigers or lambs, perhaps in the vernacular of Charles Clark III, and bulls as lambs and tigers. But the husbands were often D's or drivers and analytics, D's and C's. So what we learned was to put things in writing ahead of time. So when the husbands came in to have a look at the short list of builders that had made the first cut, we would meet with them, we'd go out to the models, we'd get all emotional, we'd get the emotion, the buying temperature up, but then we'd have lots and lots of data in writing. And I could just tell by the husband's body language that this is what they wanted to see. That as much as the homes were quite expensive, they could be anywhere from 2 to 3 million, but they still knew that we weren't going to take advantage of things were buttoned down the way they liked. So we basically adjusted our personality styles, but had the props ready for each of those personality styles. Hopefully that makes sense. When you visualize the hot buttons, we can focus on that. So you might be just giddy with enthusiasm about energy saving features, but they are just reacting to your luxury kitchen. That kitchen that Brian showed just now in that home, that SCBC home, which was so beautiful, that white kitchen with the white countertops. If that's the hot button, do what? Focus on that. Bring them back to that spot. Have your conversations in those areas. If you're looking at a move-in ready home with an amazing view, spend time out on that view. So focus on their hot buttons to keep their buying temperature high. The other thing, which is huge, is to visualize the potential objections that they could have. And then be prepared in writing to answer those and have props available as well for that. You might not need it, which is great. If you can make the sale without it, then that's wonderful. But what if you do need it? You'll have the prop ready with you. So I put a couple examples in your workbook. But let's say that you know that you're having a price increase. What is today? The 5th, I think, of August. So let's say on the 15th, your manager has said there's a price increase. So what prop would you need to have to make sure that your clients believe you? Of course, there's two choices. One is to have the prices pre-printed. Not every company I work with is going to be that organized. So the other thing would be an email from your manager that says on this date we're having a price increase. some of you managers that are selling lots of homes have probably done this, but I've had it happen where I've had an appointment right on the cusp of that price increase, so it happened already. So I'd asked my manager to send me an email saying that, you know, when Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so come in, if they make a buying decision on that trip, then we'll honor the old prices. If they don't, then they'll have to pay what the new price would be. And if I needed it, I could show that to the client and say, look, please don't be upset with me. I'm not trying to be pushy, but the price is already this. We're happy to honor this, you know, while you're here, but it has to go up. But having that written made me feel made what I was saying credible and believable. Without it, I could have just sounded like a pushy salesperson. So, you know, I want to make sure that you have that. The other example would be just having the plat ready with how the home would situate on the land, so you can walk out and show that. I was working with a salesperson once, I believe it was Minto Homes, the salesperson worked for, and she was selling beachfront, a beachfront condominium. The client was coming in to have a look at this one-of-a-kind apartment. There'd been a price increase that they were going to honor the old prices, but it was on the East Coast, so it had a sunrise view. And so what I suggested to the salesperson, and she did it, was to get out there early in the morning and take a picture of the sunrise, and then put it on a big poster board and have it ready on the patio. Because the client was coming in for one afternoon to make a decision whether to buy it. There were lots of others they were looking at. So sure enough, they came in. She had this big poster on the balcony which showed what the sunrise would have looked like that morning. And she said, look, this is what the sunrise was like. This is what you missed, and what it would be like if you lived here. And the clients went ahead and bought the home. Now, I don't know if that was the tipping point, but I would imagine that they felt, wow, she really cared about us and was really prepared with those props. So that's the idea behind that, is to visualize your appointments and really get ready for that. Let's look at the how. I'm going to take a breather. Let's look at the how-tos of appointment setting. So the first concept is to prepare, begin with the end in mind, and get ready. Let's look at some functional stuff that we need to do to increase the amount of appointments and make sure people do actually show up. So always in writing. Make the appointment in front of the client so that they know that they have a real commitment to you. And then let's follow up. You know, nowadays it's an email or Outlook invite, a calendar invite, which is very, very effective to make sure they know they have a commitment. Something that doesn't always come up, again, I want to get into some sort of advanced and mastery level ideas, is let's make sure the appointment is very near in the future. Excuse me. So when you first get in the industry, if you meet somebody on a Saturday and they say, great, we'll see you next Saturday, internally you're thinking, great, I have an appointment, but what could happen between now and next, if it's 7 days, or if it's today's Saturday, what could happen over the next 7 days? Exactly. They might not come back. They could buy somewhere else. So I want us to create urgency. I've watched it with my own sales team, and it would break my heart where clients would come back and go, I'm so sorry. You were really the nicest. We didn't mean to do it, but we just drove by an open house. We just peeked, you know, and then they end up buying that open house. And it's a heartbreaker, right? But I think we should take personal responsibility that we didn't create enough urgency, both that we're selling quickly and homes might not be there, but also make the appointment in the near future. So how long could be too long with a hot prospect? 2 to 3 days could be too long. So 1 to 2 days would be the ideal time for them to come back. And share with them that, look, I'd hate for you to be upset with me that if this home site wasn't here or things changed, so let's make it, instead of doing next Saturday, how would Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning be good for you? If they can't come back, of course, then we'll do things virtually. So that's that. The next thing is give an alternate choice. So would you rather come back at this time or that time? And then also give them an odd number. So what are the benefits of that? Well, it makes you seem busy. So remember when we couldn't get haircuts for a while, couldn't go to the hairdresser. So when they started making appointments, they would say, so-and-so can see you, I don't know, Thursday at 3:45 or Friday at 10:15. Like, okay, I'll be there. Why? Because they created urgency and made themselves feel very, very busy. So we don't want you to say, come back anytime on Thursday, because that makes you seem not at all busy. Instead, just pick one of these two, just pick a couple of times. Odd numbers are fun. It really is for giggles, but it works, and it makes you feel that much more important. So there's some practical how-to tips there. All right, so far so good. Okay, at the end, we'll see if there's any questions. Check your calendar in front of them. Always confirm the appointment. What's the best way to confirm? So what's the number one reason that people don't show up for their appointments, do you think? Is it because they're not interested in buying? No, it's because they simply forget. We're all busy. Life happens. In the 4 agreements, Don Ruiz says things like, don't take things personally, don't make assumptions. So it's easy to assume that they're not interested. No, it's none of that. Most of us just forget about things. I hate to say it. So let's make it really easy for them. Let's handhold them through that process. And so what's the best method to confirm your appointment? Whatever method is best for them, whatever they prefer. So I would give them the choice. Would you like me to follow to confirm this by phone, email, or text? Text is usually a big part of it. All the online sales counselors I work with are always talking about how valuable text is for them. So something else at an advanced level. Hopefully so far so good. So what do we get there? I'm going a bit fast to go through a lot of really in detailed information. So let's be assumptive. Let's make an appointment. Let's give them an alternate choice at an odd number. So that's some of the how-tos there. And let's put it in writing and confirm it. Some of you your clients will say things to you like this. Well, we'll call you. And again, this is something as a sales manager and a sales coach that is crushing to me when I watch this, because when we get in the business in the first couple of years, we might think they actually mean it. But from your experience, when they say we'll call you, do they actually mean it? No. Very few. So are they likely to come back? They're highly unlikely. So from now on, please, this is something you can look at later, but it's in the workbook. Practice saying this. Give them the actual benefit of why that's a bad idea. So, oh, thank you so much, but I'd hate for you to go to that trouble. Let me just set it up for Tuesday at 3:30, and I'll call you Monday to confirm, okay? So whatever the day would be, I'd pick a day or two ahead of that. So in other words, the actual benefit for them is that you're saving them the trouble. And some of you might think, well, Roland, that's awfully pushy, and I don't want to push my appointments to come back. They should want to. It's like, yeah, but that's not human nature. From my personal experience and with the sales teams that I work with, these are just as good appointments as the ones that knew they wanted to come back to make the appointment with you proactively. It's just a high I or high D behavior for them to be disorganized. So you have to take control instead. So we're just going to make the appointment and start writing. Oh, hey, if you're in that trouble, let me just put it in for this. If they say no, that's fine. I wouldn't push beyond that. But most people will say, okay, fine. How about this then? And then you'll confirm it and they'll come in. So there we go. Real quickly, a concept of there's a big difference between a planned encounter, a scheduled appointment, and just a pop-in. As Jerry Seinfeld said, he hated to pop in back in the days of Seinfeld. So if you say something like this at the end of your meeting, come back anytime Thursday, I'm here all day. Is that a good thing to say? No. What's wrong with it? Well, it diminishes all your hard-earned urgency, and it makes you seem not at all busy. So we don't want that to happen. And a theory I thought of recently, again from personal experience, is that a bad appointment counts against us double. And that's really bad English and probably not researched 100%. That's not an exact statistic there. But the idea being that if you had a good first visit and they haven't come back yet, in their minds, emotionally, they're still feeling good about this and want to come back. If they come back and have a bad appointment, that works against us. So let's make sure that we take control and plan our appointments. So let's say that you say they come back anytime and they did and you're not available. How do they feel? Obviously angry, disappointed, as though you don't care. And it was mainly, probably my experience is that we say stuff like that because we don't want to be pushy. But the outcome is the opposite. It causes them to push back and not want to come back after that. Or if you had a bad appointment where you didn't have the info ready, the stuff if you hadn't visualized it, didn't have the information ready, then they're going to be angry, unappreciated. So in either one of those scenarios, have we moved the sale forward or backwards? So I think we'd all agree we've moved it backwards. So let's do better than that and work on really good planned encounters. All right. So again, this is Training 101. I hope it's not too in the weeds or too granular for you with a lot of detail. And I know in a webinar setting that normally we keep it a bit lighter, but you do have the workbook to take back to your teams and sort of download and really get into the detail. There's probably a lot to unpack. So I said earlier that when you've identified they're just not going to buy on that visit, it's okay to leave things out. So let's look at what some of those things would be. And again, this comes from all of you and from my own experience. So some examples, I won't read them all, I don't believe, but just to touch on some of them, it would be to come back to see the home they couldn't see. So let's say that you could get them in the home, but I'm in Florida too, and sometimes in the summer at sunset, the mosquitoes are what, they're the size of eagles or something. We get these giant mosquitoes, and when it's very muggy. So let's say you have a home under construction, maybe it's at drywall. You could run out there at, I don't know, 5:15 or something, but it's not going to be a great experience. And you can see they're getting tired and they're not going to make a buying decision anyway. So why not just say, look, why don't we'll go back and recap, and let's get back together tomorrow or the next morning, and I can't wait to show you these homes in the beginning of the day. Something like that, where you're taking control and ending it proactively to make sure that the experience is really good. And then when you've shown them that home under construction on a fresh day, then you can come back, recap, and put the agreement together. Whereas you're not going to be able to do that if they're tired and getting sort of ratty, as I would say, or aggravated, a better way to say it. All right, home sites, of course, is a huge one. And I have to apologize when I was in Sarasota, one of my salespeople, Terry, who was fantastic, she and I forced people to look at home sites in a storm. There was lightning and our umbrella got wrecked and stuff like that. So I wouldn't do that again. I think that was a bad idea. It wasn't very fair on these poor folks. Let's bring them back to look at home sites and make sure it's a happy experience where they can then sit and move forward in agreement. Showing how the home will situate is another one. Price outs, of course. So when they come back for their price out, though, are we just going to start with looking at the prices? No, you're going to bring them back in the home and say, yeah, I have the prices for you. Let's go back into the model. Just want to verify you were thinking of going with the quartz countertops right here. How does that look? I believe you wanted the 42-inch cabinets or the white cabinets, and you were looking at this and that. And the flooring you wanted to change like this. Is that correct? What's going to happen to their buying temperature when they come back in and you don't start with prices, which, by the way, you could have just emailed them that. So that's inauthentic to say, come back for that. So, but when you start with a more emotional experience and you start back in the home and get their buying temperature up, or you start reviewing the finishes with them, then 30 to 45 minutes from now, when you look at that price out, all of a sudden the price objection has gone away. Does that make sense? So let's not start by sitting down and look and reviewing prices immediately when they come back in. That's non-emotional. Let's figure out something better. Either go to the model, go to the available home, go to the design studio, and get their buying temperature nice and high. And then any of the pushback they might have had about pricing is going to melt away because they're in love again. So just an important order to that. Let's see where else. So some different finishes maybe that you had ready. Spend more time looking at those finishes. A lot of you, especially with first-time buyers, they're nervous about working with a lender. So you can have that lender ready on the phone to when they come back in, put them in a private room. Let's get you pre-approved, and they come out of there feeling all chuffed and all happy because now they're ready to move forward and feeling good about things. So some of you would use that. I've done that with the first-time buyers. This is an important one to meet somebody else in the company, such as a superintendent or the actual builder. I feel like a lot of you, I'm a high I expressive, and as much as I think I know how to build a home, I could tell when the analytical clients were not enjoying what I was saying, or they wanted more detail than they felt I was giving them. So I set my ego aside and would make an appointment with the superintendent or builder, whatever you'd like to call that person that actually builds the home. And we would get together, and I was always there with them. So I'd introduce them, would go to a home under construction, the builder would walk them through it, answer all their questions, and then I would take control back and sit them back down in my office and move forward. But there may be other people that they need to meet with that work at your company that can answer their questions better, especially if you're newer into the industry and you want somebody else like a manager to come in, or maybe it's a personality style conflict where you feel like you're just not meshing with them, and they would do better with somebody that can connect better with them. So there we go. To talk to other homeowners could be possible. Unable to focus on a busy day. Excuse me a second here. Those kinds of things. Let's see. But how about this? You probably all experience this where they can't focus with their own kids around or their parents. So but while being polite, you want them to come back, at a different time. You wouldn't say, without your terrible family here, but you'd find a way to say, let's come back when we can really focus and make an appointment on their behalf. Maybe they're just simply too rushed. When you identify that it's, let's say, it's Saturday afternoon and they just seem frazzled, then bring them back for an appointment. I just separate them from the herd. This is the most morbid reference I think I ever make, but do any of you ever watch those sort of nature channels National Geographic, that kind of stuff, Smithsonian. So sometimes when the lion is stalking the herd there, the lion of antelope or whatever it is that they stalk, they sort of wait for that weak one at the back, and then they identify that one, and that's the one they go for. Not really, I don't mean that we're attacking bison or something here. What I mean is when you see people lagging behind, if you're busy and there's a group of people, the real buyers might be getting annoyed that they're not getting your undivided attention. So identify them, separate them from the herd, and say, look, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Smith, that we're so busy, as you can see. When would be a good time to come back? So I give my undivided attention. Would Monday morning be good, or Tuesday afternoon, or whatever your choices are? And they'll be very grateful for that, and then you can move forward. Maybe they have an expert, their decorator, or that kind of stuff, and then just better weather. And any other suggestions you have. All right, we're sort of winding down a little bit, about 5 more minutes, I think, and then we'll open this up for questions. Has this been helpful so far? I hope so. I can't see your hand, so just thought I'd ask. Anyway, the last ideas are about creating urgency without being pushy. So in all sales, and in any new home sales, there needs to be 2 questions that are answered. Why my builder? But importantly, why now? So if you can highlight that, please highlight that why now. And so some why now ideas would be obviously before the price increase, a limited time incentive that expires. And of course, the third one that's not in here would be the home site that could be sold to somebody else. So some of these reasons for an appointment and the ones that create more urgency are to do with pricing and home sites. And then the other thing is to make sure that we communicate authentically in a way that there's not pushback. So any variation of this kind of an idea, and some of you that I work with, I saw earlier that Sarah Sanderson, I think, is on the call, and she's up there, and she works for Hunter Quinn Builders, and she's great at this. It's just somebody that I know that is very, very humble and has a way of speaking that people connect with. But say things like, I would hate for you to be upset if I didn't share, or hate for you to be mad at me, or I would hate for you to be disappointed if I didn't explain that next week there's a price increase, or I didn't explain that we really are busy and that home site might not be here. So with that in mind, let's get back together in 2 days from now, not 5 days or something like that. So that light takeaway can really help people to connect with you, and you have to almost apologize for it. But have any of you ever had this happen? I have, where I didn't explain that things would change, like a price increase or an incentive expiring. The client came back and they were mad at you, like, well, why didn't you tell me price was going? I was like, yeah, I know, that's a good point. So I have learned now to have those hard conversations and make sure that you use that in your appointment setting to create urgency. All right, quick personality test. There are 2 personality styles that are impulsive, so they buy things more quickly. So those are your drivers. Charles Clark III calls them bulls, like a bull in a china shop. Also influencers or tigers. And then the indecisive, or the ones that are slower paced, are going to be your S's or lambs, or your compliance C's or owls. So the point for appointment setting is this, that if you move too quickly with your lambs and owls, what could happen? Right, they're going to scare them. I'm sadly, I'm not proud of any of the stuff here, but I'm not proud of this, but I can see the exact moment in my mind where I move too quickly with certain lamb type eyes. You can just see that, wow. I don't think they should be called lambs. In fact, I think they should be turtles, because it was like they withdrew into their shell. They're like, Roland, I think you're a pushy. This is what they're thinking. They never said it, but I could see it in their body, like, Roland, you're a pushy person. You shouldn't have done whatever. And so then they just withdraw. So we've got to be careful with the owls and the lambs. You don't push too hard. So they always almost want to come back. And so measure your appointments. Maybe it's 5 appointments or 4 appointments. What if you get it down to 3 or 2 with those? That would be an extraordinary improvement. But if you move too slowly with your tigers and your bulls, what can happen? They get bored, and they'll either leave or not want to work with you. So it's not one size fits all, right? So if you're overly thorough and sort of pedantic again with your tigers and your bulls, they're just going to find that annoying. So we've got to speed up, and we can sell first visit, second visit for sure. With your S's and your C's, we'll learn to slow down, bring them back, have a plan for them, and then work on our other closing techniques to make sure we can move them forward. The other idea is to always be enthusiastic. So when you know they're not buying that day, start planting the seed for the appointment. When you come back, I can't wait to share with you this, or I can't wait to show you that home site we couldn't look at. Any of those ideas are things that would work well. And then what I'd like you to do, If you're following along with the workbook, great, but I will gladly email you this workbook with the answers filled in. But this part of it is your own, which is why I didn't fill it in. I'd like you to make a goal of how many people that you meet on a weekly basis are you going to bring back for a scheduled appointment. So where I worked, it was actually, I worked for 10 years in a community in South Florida, in Palm Beach County. I was one of 10 salespeople for a long, long time, but it was measured for me, and I brought back 67% of the people that I work with. I brought back for an appointment, which is a pretty good number, you know. So, and I was sharing ups and leads there, so it would have been higher if I had all my own leads, of course. But that's in the past. Anyway, so I would make a goal of how many people you meet. So if you're meeting 10 people a week, let's say you get that kind of traffic, which would be wonderful. Then how many people you want to bring back? I would suggest no less than 70% as a goal. Maybe 80% is a really good number. I'm willing to accept that there's going to be natural attrition, of course, because not everyone's qualified for your home. Research says that about 10% of people really are just looking. So any of those things would sort of negate maybe 10 or 20%. But if you can get 70 to 80% of your clients back on a planned encounter, then imagine what's going to happen to your sales. They'll go off the charts exponentially. So I'd like to suggest that August, September, and September become the months of appointment setting for you. Lastly, in here, there's some protocols. I'm just going to touch on this for a couple of minutes, if that's okay, because it's all stuff that you can read when you get the workbook here. One of the things I've learned, when you have an appointment, whether it's your own that you're bringing back or one from an online sales counselor, it's nice if you have something like a plaque or a chalkboard there that says welcome special guest of the day and has their name on it. So that's a charming thing that you can do if you're able to do that. It's not mandatory. I want us to work on the greetings. So if it's you greeting them, this is sort of an idea of what you would say. The important part is the second part. So, you know, Tim and Faith, it's a pleasure to see you again. You know, obviously you want some rapport building. Can I offer you a refreshment? How was your drive? That kind of stuff. The part that I want to get to is this, which is I want to make sure we still learn more information and confirm what we already know. So, Tim and Faith, I can't wait to show you our homes again. Come on back and let's confirm your plans before we go and look at the model home again. And so, in other words, we have an appointment. What we might do is tend to rush into it without knowing what their goals are. And they might be thinking, I just want to buy the darn thing. Why is he bothering to, you know, to tell me stuff? So let's figure that out. So there's other scenarios. I'm not going to read them. They're in your workbook. Sometimes I get really caught into the granular stuff here, but that's something you can look at later. And then lastly, this, I wanted to compare the difference. So here's a discovery, what I would call a discovery card for a walk-in buyer for the first time. And again, it's in your workbook. It's pretty cool. It's all the open-ended questions. Hey, how'd you hear about us? When are you thinking of moving? Our homes of value between? What else is important? And then you chunk that back or repeat it back. That's your basic discovery, the essential discovery. There's a lot more. You know, we're going to learn hot buttons and pain points at some point, but the basics are here. But when they come back for an appointment, it looks and feels different. So this is what I wanted to share. And then I'm going to bring Lauren back, I promise, to answer to see your questions. So when it's a return guest, I want you to confirm and learn. So this is sort of what it would sound like, Jim, Sally, whatever. Before we look at our models, I'd like to just confirm briefly what your needs are so I can understand what is important. And so here we go. You'd like to move in this time frame. So you're confirming that stuff. You're hot, but you really like the idea of a one-stop shop. So that's that. But this is the part that I want to make sure we get to, which is learning. And so here's some ideas you could suggest. Please tell me that you could try. You don't have to do all of them, but please tell me what would you like to accomplish today. So early on, welcome back, great to see you. Da, da, da. By the way, what are your plans? What would you like? We bought a check, but Roland would like to buy the home, be out by 4:30, if that's okay. No, of course it would be okay. Or then other things. Tell me more about your family, what's important to you. And this depends upon what you know already, obviously. What else you'd like me to know? What do you like the most about whatever, your current home? Or what would you like to change the most? These are things that are sort of under the surface, things that you might not have gleaned on the first visit, but would be very helpful to make sure you know these things now, because it's an appointment. That's a huge sign of interest. Obviously, we should be converting our appointments to sales. So there might be some emotional criteria that you haven't learned yet that you would use this as an opportunity. Before we look at them, I just want to make sure, what else have I missed? Tell me about what you'd like to change the most again about your home, what you like, those kinds of details. And then lastly, we're going to set expectations. questions. This is a little wordy, so again, it's not word for word, but why not set, based upon what you've learned and confirmed, set the expectations. So that's perfect. Today we'll pop back in the models so you can review the finishes. I'll bring the floor plan of the home you like the most, which is the Ashmore, let's say, so I can help you compare and understand how your home would feel. We'll then run out to the home site so you can see how your home would be situated. Good. Finally, we'll sit back down in my office and recap. I'll create a little personalized investment snapshot to show you what your home would be with the finishes you're considering. Presuming that looks good, we'll then begin the process for you. How does that sound? Sound good? Great. So in other words, why wouldn't you want to set the expectation of what's happening? If they say, great, wonderful, they say, look, I don't really have time for that. Let's get to the agreement part and then, email it to me or whatever, and then you decide what to do next. So there we go. So I'm going to take a breather, as it were. I think I'm not sharing anymore, am I? Do I need to press a button? Am I good? But that is the end of my little show, as it were, regarding appointments and masks. Let's see what questions you have.
Hey,
Lauren.
thanks, Roland. We don't have any questions yet, but now's the time. If anybody has anything to contribute or a question or feedback, I know that Paul Gordzig.
Yes, from
sure
Colorado.
You know him. Yep,
Very
he
well.
says your insights are spot on. Have to run to a meeting. Really sorry to miss the rest. Take care, my friend. So that was nice.
Good.
Looks like something. How do we get a copy of the workbook? We will send it.
Yes, yeah, I can. My email, it's roland@newhomesalesplus.com. I can send it to you as well, Lauren, if you want. But if they want to email me, that would be great. And absolutely, I'll send you the workbook all filled in with the answers this time. So you didn't have to get into an accident writing them down.
Yeah, and I have already shared the participant list with Roland, so he has all your email addresses. But yeah, if you want to send that to me as well, just in case somebody popped on late or something, I can definitely send that. And we did record this, so I will upload this to YouTube and post on the Tampa SMC Facebook page when it is available. It normally takes like an hour or so, but that will be available for you to share or rewatch here shortly.
Good. And Tony has said my email, I do speak quickly, so I apologize. It's Roland, there we go. It's Roland@newhomesalesplus.com. But I see yours too, Tony, right? So that's wonderful.
Great. Liz Owen, longtime member of the TVBA. Thank you. She says great contact. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right. So
if there's nothing else.
Let's go back and sell lots of homes and make people happy. Let's make their dreams come true.
And again, Roland, thank you so much. You have just gifted your time these last couple of months, and we really appreciate you. I know that we've had you live and in person, which is great, and we hope to do that very soon as well.
Yes, as soon as it's safe to get into big groups, I'll be back over there. And I love working with your group. It's really close, and I have family in Tampa, so it's always a good chance to visit with my family when I'm coming and sharing ideas with you guys. Yeah, when it's safe. I love it. There we go. All right, keep up the great work, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.